Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Hello, Romulans, Klingons, Vulcans, and Trekkies. My name is Rob Renshaw, and I have a pretty incredible Star Trek story to share with you. My father, Henry Renshaw, affectionately known as Hank, started his career at Paramount Studios in the 40s when he was just a kid. He started in the mailroom in an entry-level job, delivering mail to the different departments on the lot. Back in those days, that is how you got your start in the industry. He had no idea what he wanted to do. He just needed a job to support his family. After a few years in the mailroom, he was approached by someone in the finance department that had taken a liking to him and asked him if he wanted to work in the finance department. He accepted the mission. Being good at numbers, he soon found himself in television estimating. What is estimating, you ask? He was given a script, and after reading the script, he would have to project a rough cost of what it would take to shoot the episode. If there was a scene with 6 horses and they needed to cut or reduce the cost of the production, then 2 of the horses would get the axe. He worked on shows like Mission Impossible, Gunsmoke, Mannix, and various others. I remember going to the studio with him when I was a kid. He would take me around the lot, introduce me to his friends that worked in other departments, and they would show me and tell me what they did. Pretty mind-blowing stuff for a kid. My favorite department was the prop department. Warehouses full of everything and anything. I remember one of the prop masters opening drawers and giving me handfuls of fake Confederate currency that was used in old movies. I still have it after all these years. I remember being on the sets of The Brady Bunch, The Lucille Ball Show, and Star Trek. What an incredible experience to be watching your favorite show one night and the next day being on the set where it was filmed. Damn it, Rob, the props. The props. Tell us about the props. Who are your Trekkie jets? One of my dad's friends was Russ Brown, who was the executive in charge of all the back lot departments. My dad went to Russ's office one day in 1969. To get to a chair to have a seat, he had to step over a couple boxes full of small props. My dad inquired about them. Russ told him they were from the TV show Star Trek that had recently been canceled. My dad asked Russ what was going to happen to them, and Russ said they were going to be disposed of. Yes, a one-way trip to the dumpster. My dad thought, great, a box full of toys. My boys will be thrilled, and asked Russ if he could have them. Russ replied, yes, please get them out of my office, and that is how they ended up in my brother's and mine's hands. My brother Bill and I were over the moon when my dad showed up to the house with a new box of toys, and boy, did we and the neighbor kids have fun with them. What was in the box, you ask? Just about every small prop used on the show. Phasers, communicators, the shot that Dr. McCoy used to heal every ailment that the Starship crew had, Klingon weapons, props that sat on tables and desks behind the action. There was some props from the original pilot with Jeffrey Hunter as Captain Christopher Pike. And when I say we had fun with them, I mean we did a pretty good job of destroying and dismantling every last one of them. Almost every last one of them. Here's one bit of information that I don't know if any Star Trek enthusiast or historian knows. In the box of props that my father brought home was a rubber Klingon disruptor. My dad said it would have been used in a scene where the actor would have been hit over the head with the prop, and being made of rubber would not injure the actor. This rubber disruptor was identical to its wood counterpart in shape, size, and color. Unfortunately, the rubber that it was made of was not of the highest quality, and the disruptor began to deteriorate, basically vaporized, within years of us owning it. At some point in time, my mom figured it was trash and tossed it in the garbage. Prior to getting the props, my dad would bring home scripts from various TV shows, including Star Trek. The use of these scripts was that on the back side of the papers were nice blank white pages that could be colored on. The scripts all came from the production department. To my knowledge, none of the scripts I had were used by the actors. They were all labeled production department with a number stamped in blue ink on the front cover, and color we did. Here is one of the scripts I kept for prosperity. Had a yellow cover. It's just a basic production script, and in the upper right hand corner it says production department, as well as the stamped inked number. This episode is the Mark of Gideon. So, at about this time in the story, you're calling me an idiot, a numbskull, or even worse, a Romulan. My dad brought home so many scripts that we could not color on them all. About 30 Star Trek scripts survived Mr. and Mr. Crayola. Around 1999, I started to put the scripts that survived our rudimentary artwork on eBay. They were a hit, and I had no problem getting hundreds of dollars for them. It was about this time I remembered that we had one gun around the house that survived. Yes, one Klingon disruptor. Props are made to look good on screen, but they're usually made quickly and cheaply to keep the cost of the production down. This disruptor was no different. So I decided I would put the disruptor up for auction on eBay like I had done with the scripts. The disruptor was stored high on a closet shelf. It was in a box wrapped in a towel. I remember the day in January 2006 when I went to the closet to visit the Star Trek relic that had survived for the past 35 years. I thought to myself that some Trekkie might like owning a piece of history like this. I enjoyed watching the original series and relished the personal connection that I had to the show, but I would not dare call myself a Trekkie. The disruptor, over the years, had just naturally deteriorated and was in pretty rough shape. Mainly, the paint was cracking, chipping, and peeling. I had several thoughts on my motivation to sell the disruptor. One, as I mentioned earlier, that someone out there in the universe would enjoy the piece of history more than I did. Two, that if I kept it, that it would continue to deteriorate and eventually lose some or all of its value. Three, that one day, maybe in the not so near future, that the Trekkie race would die out and cease to exist, and the interest in this prop would cease to exist, with no place left to go but the landfill. I listed the disruptor on eBay with a starting bid of $500, and within hours of the listing, the bid was over $2,000. It was about this time I began to wonder about its true value, and that maybe I should get an expert appraisal. If you want to see a Trekkie turn into a Klingon in warp speed, put a Star Trek item up for auction on eBay and then remove it before the auction ends. I did not imagine that a Trekkie could be of such violent temper. So after doing some research on the internet, I made contact with the Profiles in History auction house in Beverly Hills, that is. They said the disruptor would make an excellent addition to the March 2006 auction that they were planning. The Gorn full head mask from the Arena episode was to be the highlight of the auction and was going to be featured on the cover of the auction catalog. So, with Disruptor in hand, I headed down to Beverly Hills, that is, after sharing some history about the disruptor with the Profiles in History representative and how it came into my hands, and after inspecting the disruptor, they eagerly wanted it in their upcoming auction. Provenance was provided, documents were signed, and the starting bid was set for $15,000. Hot fudge holy moly, I said. Who could imagine that a cheaply made toy gun could command such a price? I also had some other props in less favorable condition. One incomplete phaser from the Cage episode and a prop that sat on a desk in one of the episodes. Here is the Profiles in History auction catalog that the disruptor ended up being featured in. I was excited about the upcoming auction and was invited to attend on the day of the event. How could I pass up such a memorable opportunity? So, on March 31st, 2006, I once again headed down to Beverly Hills, that is. The auction venue was small, and it was packed, standing room only. There were people on landline phones on the perimeter of the room bidding for absentee bidders, and a group of people at a table on laptops doing the same. It was exciting to be part of the process. At the end of the day, the three props of mine went for a whopping $19,500, the Disruptor commanding $16,500. Who knew that a TV series in the 60s that was considered a flop would end up with such a cult following, and the props from that show to be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Who knew?